I don't know who the heck they are out there who are saying that women can't go to school and that kind of stuff. That's just ridiculous. It goes against Islamic teaching that women can't get an education. They're required to get an education. Women are allowed to participate in the political process. That was something that was established and demonstrated during the time of Prophet Muhammad. And we always say peace be upon him when we say his name. So that was something that was established, where women participated in public discourse and they were teachers, and they took part in the societal process. So women actually had that right as well. That was not granted to American women. The right to vote wasn't granted to American women for hundreds of years later. Unfortunately, you see in Saudi Arabia, they're not following that dictate. So Saudi is really that example of what Islam should be. They follow, I don't know what they're following, but they're not following Islam. And it's like some kind of, all these countries that claim to be Muslim who say that they're following Islamic doctrines, every conflict that they say is about religion. It really is not about religion. It's about the haves against the have-nots. The people in power wanting to keep their power and suppressing whoever the other people are. And that's always, always, always. Look at the history, look at the way that it really is, and it's always about some kind of political struggle. And it's not really about, you're holding your hands this way and you're holding your hands this way. That's not what the fights are about. It's my tribe follows this faith, your tribe follows that faith. It's a tribal war, but it's always, following. They get people hooked up with the religious aspect of it. Not that would ever happen in America.
No, never.
Just saying. So it happens, all around the world, where religion is one of those tools that people use to try to incite against whoever the other is. And it happens all around the world. And unfortunately, that's part of the struggles that you see in so-called religious struggles. It's not really about the religion itself. So as far as the issues against women, one of the other things that women have a right to, aside from owning property, is the concept of having their own wealth. Women have the right to work. It's something that's discussed in their household. But whatever a woman brings into the household, that's for her. What the husband brings into the household, that's for them. The husband has a responsibility to maintain the household. The woman is not required to work to help basic needs, home, food, clothing, those are things that the husband has a responsibility to provide for his family. And not just for his wife and his children, but if his mother is in need, he's supposed to provide for his mother, his aunts, his cousins. So men have that responsibility to take care of the women in their clan, basically, to make sure that everybody is cared for. And if a woman chooses to work, that's her own money that she could do what, and I should say chooses, it's like a discussion that's had in the family. And so you want to have it's not just like, I'm going to do whatever I want kind of thing, because that wouldn't work in a family anyways. So I'm hoping that those things answered the questions that were already presented, and I'm willing to answer any other questions that you have. And Pastor in the back there, of course, hand up.
I think they'll be able to hear me. One of the things that I would like to, you may not be able to express this, but a lot of times people generalize and say, oh, it's Islam, and that's a big blanket that they throw over everything. How many factions are there, denominations, are there different practices of Islam, much like the Christian faith has a plethora of denominations, and denominations cropping up all the time, and thought processes. And I'm assuming it's similar in the Muslim faith, or could you address that?
Actually, there's two big factions, which is the Shia and the Sunni. And that's actually, once again, political. It's about, the divide happened when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, died, and there was a question as to who was going to take leadership. And there was a group who thought it should be a family line, and there was a group who thought it should be the most qualified. So the people of the most qualified, that thought it should be most qualified, it turned out to be the Sunni folks, and the people who thought it should be based on family lineage who the Shia were. So a lot of the practices, and if you go to places where there's a large Shia and Sunni population, the people get along fine. There's people in Charlotte who they're Shia, they're Sunni, who pray together. So it's not an ancient war. It's when the political powers get into it that it becomes a problem. So those are really the two the two big differences. I heard one person say that, a Christian say that, he's Baptist, and he said, Baptists multiply by dividing. So that was pretty funny. But the reality with Islam, there really is, there's this concept of different schools of thought. And what happened with that is that there was people who learned from Prophet Muhammad. And then they went to go, like this guy, who was very learned, and he learned a lot of the sayings and the rules from the Prophet. He went to go live over here. And then this guy went to go live over here. And this guy went to live over here. So as they taught people separately, things were a little different, but not monumental. Actually, the leaders of the different schools of thought said, that's a valid, this person has has said that this is permissible because of what he's learned, and he learned from the same prophet that we learned from, so his decision is valid, and his decision is valid also. So we shouldn't be fighting against each other because of these differences. And it's differences about like how you hold your hands, how you wash to pray, those kind of things. So they're not really monumental differences in faith. It's just like how you do things. But it really, most Islamic centers don't declare, we are going to be following this particular school of thought. Some of them do, but most of them don't. So in Charlotte, you can go to any mosque, and it's not going to be very different from another mosque. So there's slight differences, but once again, if there's any battles, it's not about the faith. It's about, like, this tribe over here says that, this land is mine, or I want to have the oil rights over here, or water rights, or whatever. And so they end up battling over that, and it's not really about, even the Shia-Sunni conflict isn't necessarily about religion, it's tribal. It's like, my tribe is this, and your tribe is that. And so we're fighting over that. Does that answer that question?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, you talked about the line and went through Jesus as part of your faith. As part of your faith, you went through Jesus. And then you talked a lot about wearing your head covered because then you might not go to hell and different things that, and so what is your belief that if you don't follow all the rules of Islam that you will go to hell? Or do you have any belief in that Jesus came to save you of your sins, or did Muhammad? I never understood that.
That's a good question. It's a very basic difference in the Christian and Muslim understanding of salvation. For us, keep in mind, one of the things that I understand from the Christian faith is that this whole concept of original sin is why we needed Jesus to come. So if you don't have the concept of original sin, then we revere Jesus as for the things that he taught, but we don't have this concept of salvation through Jesus. We believe that each person is responsible for their actions, and we believe that God is the most merciful, the most kind. If he forgave Adam and Eve for the one thing he told them not to do, and he forgave them, they had to suffer the consequences of their actions, but he forgave them. So there is always a chance for salvation, and that to me is the example of God forgiving. And he's a forgiving God, and he's a loving God, and he wants us to succeed. So we don't have a golden ticket to automatically, like if you do this, you'll automatically get to go to heaven. It's a constant daily struggle of trying to do the right thing every day, and we pray that we will eventually reach paradise. And there's also a concept that you might have to spend some time in hell and then eventually go to heaven. So we don't have like a golden ticket that if you do all these things. Because another aspect of it is, it's like if you're just doing these things just for show, and it's not, it depends how much your intentions are to do these things. There's women who don't cover, who are much better Muslims than I am, but they just don't cover. So I can't be judgmental about somebody who covers. You can't say that if you do A, B, C, and D, that these are the things that are automatically going to grant you paradise. You are supposed to constantly struggle to do the right thing in everything that you do. So it isn't a golden ticket kind of thing. Does that make sense? That as far as that whole salvation
We
thing?
don't feel like we have a golden ticket. I think that we all have to do out of God's love.
It isn't. See, like I said from the beginning, the whole thing about being out of God's love, Adam and Eve disobeyed God, but they never went out of God's love. So we don't feel like we're out of God's love, but we do know that we're going to have to answer for our actions. So our actions should always be the best actions they could be, and those actions and the intention behind those actions are going to be measured. God will measure that on the day of judgment, and everything will be. The one thing that I believe in is a very just God, and justice will be served in the end. So I don't have a fear that God will be unfair to me, and because we're constantly reminded that God is the most merciful, the most kind, those things are what propel me to do the right thing in everyday life. So, but this concept of salvation is the thing that's different. We don't have that concept of salvation because we never had the concept of original sin. So it's a constant thing that we're trying to maintain a good relationship.
You keep going back to original sin, but in my mind as a Christian, that isn't what it is an original sin that Jesus came and saved us for. It's because we can never, as humans, follow exactly his path. We can never be that good no matter how hard we try, which is why the Jewish people had the law, they could never keep it. So it isn't original sin, I don't feel, that Jesus came for. It's for all of us because we cannot be that perfect. No matter how hard we try. We try, but we cannot ever be that perfect.
And I thought I was going to say the same thing, is that we can never be 100% perfect in everything we do, but it's the striving for that we are going for. So I think it's a different word that we're using, but in our actions and the way that we live our life, like with my sister who's very devout in her faith, the way we live our lives looks the same. The connection that we're constantly trying to make with God is the same. So the words that are used are a little different, but the way that we act and the way we comport ourselves in the relationship that we're trying to maintain with God is, I think, the same. I hope that answers that.
What's going on?
I was saying that.
By the way, this is my one who's a Muslim, so he's
part of making mistakes is the fact that God loves it when we go back to Him every time we make a mistake. So it's not about giving up, saying, "Oh, I made a mistake. He'll never accept me. I'll be punished." He loves the fact that we go back and we ask for forgiveness, no matter how many times we do it. He wants us to go back. He wants us to try.
Yeah, hopefully that gave more perspective as well.
Thank you. I saw a few hands. We'll just work our way back.
Yes, I guess I was too busy skiing, didn't really know what was going on. Could you tell us a little bit about the Trump thing?
The Trump thing? A little adventure in Trump land. I went, Trump was having a rally. Now, I have a group of friends. Actually, I have two friends who have been extremely active in a lot of social justice issues. This group has done things about Black Lives Matter. They've done things about immigration reform. They're extremely active folks. And they've been attending the Trump rallies. And one of the things that they did at the Trump rallies to protest, there's kind of two camps within this group. One of them was they would actually be verbal and say things, and the other one was doing silent protesting. And one of the things that they had, and Marty Rosenbluth, who's the man, if you saw the picture, is the man standing next to me. He's a Jewish man who, when he heard Trump saying that he wanted to ban Muslims from coming to America, and he wanted to put them in a database, and he wanted them to have special IDs, he, as a Jewish person, it struck a nerve with him in a way that I don't think that people who are not Jewish can really grasp. So he had seen this emblem of an 8-pointed star being used at a protest, so what he designed with his group of friends was to have it on these stars, they would put human, anti-hate, Muslim, anti-Islamophobia, so it was a whole group of different things. So it's this whole group who had gone there, and I thought, I'll join along. So, as an American, we can say, you know what, I object to what you're saying as a politician, and this is a democracy, and we have the right to express our desires and our displeasure with whatever it is that you're proposing. So that's an American right. It's called freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, those kind of things. So, as an American, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go there, I'm going to protest, and I'm going to do it silently. But as a Muslim, I realized, I'm going to be a little more noticeable than most people. And especially at a Trump rally, I figured I'd be a little more noticeable. So one of the things that I thought about was, my son owns a t-shirt printing business, and he helped me design this t-shirt that said, Salam, I come in peace. Because I thought maybe there'd be a picture taken of me somewhere. Maybe. So that was a little underestimated. Yeah. So I thought, if somebody saw a picture of me, I wanted to kind of make them feel at ease and not be worried about me. So it was a literal message to anybody who I might encounter that I'm not, to be feared. And so that was literally what the shirt said. So, so we went, and as we went, we split up and we were sitting in different places, but the yellow badge was actually the sign of protest. They had used it at the other rallies that they had attended. And at one point during the whole thing, and then we had to make choices of where we were going to sit. And like I said, I was one of the first people to get there, so I'm texting and saying, where should I sit? And they said, find the cameras and stand in front of the cameras. So, by the way, protesting 101, get in front of the camera. So I thought, okay, the cameras are over there, this is the podium, I'm going to stand right behind him, so I'll be in the shot. If anybody's taking pictures, they can see me there. That was intentional. People were like, you did that on purpose. I'm like, yeah, I did. So when we got there, we were kind of further up, but then, God's plan is always the best. So it's just a little thing. Some people were complaining about the shirt that I wore. They said, you purposely wore that shirt to stand out, but you picked that color because it stands out in the crowd, and look, and somebody actually said, look what everybody else is wearing. I'm like, okay, my son had 3 shirts, he had 4 shirts, it was white, gray, black, and that color. It's like, so that's the color that I ended up picking, and I just got home and I happened to have a scarf that matched it. I mean, God's plan is the best. So that was what I ended up doing. Another little thing was that when they had down in front, they had 6 rows that had reserved stickers on them, reserved papers on them, but they didn't want people sitting there. But then about a half an hour before he was due to come, I guess the folks that were supposed to sit there weren't there. And I remember this from going to other rallies, is that whoever, they very carefully monitor that the seats behind are full, because they want to make it look like it's a full audience. So they started telling everybody to come down. So I'd sit down there, and I got even further in front. So it was like, yes. But the problem was that I didn't have a star. And so I texted my friend and said, I don't have a star, send somebody down with a star. And so because we didn't put the stars on until he started talking about the Syrian refugee people all being parts of ISIS. So this was also planned. She knew that if they saw the stars, that they would know that she was a protester and they wouldn't let her in. So she hid them in a book. So when I went down there, then Marty came down. I'd never met him before, but he's the one who had the stars, the one who actually designed the stars. So he's the one who's ended up sitting next to me. So that's how that ended up happening. So when Trump started talking about the Syrian refugees he said that the Syrian refugees, he said they're not sending women and children, they're sending men. They're sending young men, and they all have cell phones, and on all of those cell phones, they have pictures of ISIS killing people, and they're supporters of ISIS, which is absolutely not true.